welcome to the second season of the Ecologies of Danger podcast. Ecologies of Danger is a project produced by the students of a course on environmental security at Colgate University. In this season, we look at the different ways in which the environment has become a security issue. In this episode, hchenok gets at the roots of what's driving the water crisis in war-torn Yemen.
Do you hear that? That's a sound some people in Yemen haven't heard in their homes in 3 or more years, because their taps no longer work. Yemen is running out of drinking water. I don't mean running out like it's the dry season, so the water isn't available now. I mean full scale, people cannot access water anymore, running out. How did this happen? To be honest, the water conflict in Yemen is super confusing because there's not just one catalyst. Instead, there's this massive convergence of factors that leave Yemen vulnerable to water crisis. It's not just the environment, or war, or mismanagement, although we'll explore some of these issues in the podcast. It's all of those things, and all at once.
We are in crisis, and this is expected. I mean, we are using almost 100% more than the annual renewable water that's available in Sana'a.
That was Abdul Rahman Iryani, Yemen's Minister of Water and the Environment. He's hinting at overconsumption, one of the main catalysts behind Yemen's lack of water. Let's take a look at some of these catalysts in more detail. First of all, there's economics. The country's increased efforts to join global markets created a huge demand for cash crops like the narcotic pot, which use up a ton of water. Farmers started making more money once they switched their produce and are now drilling deep into the water table to keep on extracting. Secondly, there's the way Yemen manages its water. Historically, tribal leaders used techniques like rainfall collection to control intake, but open markets destroyed traditional localized solutions, and now regulation is super tricky. Recently, villagers in the Amran Basin erupted when they learned that over 100 new wells were built in the area in a single year, most without permits. The government's trying to strike a balance between state and local governance, but doesn't have the legitimacy to implement regulations. The third catalyst behind Yemen's lack of water is the country's politics. There's no one source of authority, which means political decisions often don't get made or implemented. With water management, there are national laws, constitutional frameworks, local traditions, and religious doctrines to deal with. None of them say the same thing, and that makes it hard to find a solution. On top of all that, there's a huge power imbalance. Rich Yemenis are benefiting from the status quo, so they're either fighting proposed water laws or completely ignoring them. Small farmers and water management advocates are competing with rich landowners who use powerful drills to literally extract more groundwater from adjacent plots. Imagine sharing a glass of water with a friend, except you have an industrial electric-powered straw, and your friend has one of those tiny ones that go into cocktails but no one ever drinks out of. They're gonna leave thirsty. Already, we're seeing the effects of these factors on water access. It now costs the same amount to buy 1 bottle of water as it used to feed a family for a day. 2 in 3 Yemenis can't afford it anymore. As if all that wasn't bad enough, Yemen is in its 3rd year of a civil war. Its government, led by internationally recognized President Abdrabbuh Mansour Hadi and backed by Saudi Arabia, is under siege. The Houthi rebels are a coalition of sectarian militants. They have joined forces with supporters of former President Ali Abdullah Saleh and Iran to attempt to take over the country. This jumble of actors and interests are hurting the civilian population. At least 10,000 have died and 3 million are displaced. Past negotiations have absolutely failed. The war is also exacerbating the water conflict, as actors exploit Yemen's water vulnerabilities.
The roads that lead to wells are cut off, and there are only a few wells that cover the city. There is hardly any water.
That was a Yemeni citizen expressing his frustration at the current situation. Both sides target this essential commodity, bombing water reservoirs, bridges, viaducts, dams, and water treatment plants across the country. The destruction of infrastructure cuts off Yemen's already deficient water supply. Without access to clean water, people have to rely on water delivery, but foreign aid agencies often can't get it there. Saudi Arabia began a blockade back in 2015 that they ramped up last year. Paolo Cernucci, the Yemen director for the International Rescue Committee, explains the impact it had on his organization.
What it's meant limited access to basic necessities, to fuel supplies and water. Trucking that we provide to 50,000 people per week is likely to reduce in numbers because of that lack of access of fuel. So we're seeing a significant challenge to delivery of humanitarian aid right now.
Even when the aid reaches villages, it can be difficult to try to access. It can even be deadly. Mira Hazam is an 8-year-old girl living in the city of Taiz. Instead of going to school, she walks through an active war zone to collect water jugs for her family. When her mom heard that some kids were shot trying to get water, she stopped sending Mira out. But only for 2 days. Mira went back again when her family ran out of water. So how can or should Yemen deal with all this? The issue is, you can't fix just one problem. Say Yemenis start by bringing political actors to the negotiating table. Maybe they even reach a ceasefire agreement. That would stop the bombing of infrastructure and allow aid flows. But they're still left with this huge system of mismanagement surrounding Yemen's water administration. Or maybe they start by fixing the water management system. Before the war, many talented Yemenis were trying to create smart, realistic regulations. But if the violence continues, no one will be able to implement any of it. 50% of people need water as a direct result of the conflict. So is there any hope? In the long term, yes. Experts say that going back to old methods of rainwater collection wouldn't satisfy the growing population. But an emphasis on local solutions and cooperation across sectors can improve the situation. Walid Saleh, the chief technical advisor at the Food and Agriculture Organization of Yemen, explains one of his projects.
These water associations will be run by the farmers themselves and found in partnership with the government, many government agencies in Yemen, to train the farmers to take charge of their own life.
Hardworking Yemenis are finding creative solutions to the water shortage. They have the potential to create substantive, long-lasting change. If the fighting stops. For Colgate University, I'm hchenok.